The legend of Bloody Mary is one we all know, but few know her as I do. I used to laugh at ghost stories, thought urban legends were nothing but bedtime tales to scare kids. That all changed the night my friends dared me to call on her. It was supposed to be a simple dare. My friends laughed at her stories for hours, trying to see who could freak each other out the most. Bloody Mary, the ultimate challenge. The one that separates those who are just here for fun from those who are brave enough to see it through. I stood in the dim bathroom, moonlight barely filtering through the narrow window. My hand shook as I held my phone's flashlight, casting an eerie glow that bounced off the bathroom mirror, casting strange shadows across the walls. "Do it. Just do it already," my friend whispered from behind the closed door. "Or are you scared, Bloody Mary?" I whispered. The words felt strange on my tongue, foreign, like they didn't belong in my mouth. A chill ran down my spine, the kind that tells you something isn't right. But I pushed forward. Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. As soon as I said her name the third time, the room went cold. Not the kind of cold from an open window, but a bone-deep chill that seemed to seep into my skin. The mirror fogged slightly, and I could see my breath, hanging in the air like a ghostly mist. Suddenly, there she was, her figure forming in the fog of the mirror. At first, just a shadowy outline, but then, features began to appear, twisted, grotesque. Her face, a nightmare come to life. Hollow eyes that seemed to stare into my soul, lips curled into a twisted sneer, skin that looked as though it had been peeled away. Layer by layer, I froze. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Her hand reached toward me, skeletal and decayed, her nails broken, jagged. I felt a sudden, paralyzing terror, the kind that makes every instinct scream to run. But my legs wouldn't listen. As her fingers brushed against the glass, I could swear I heard whispers, a low, guttural voice echoing in my head. I couldn't understand the words, but the tone was unmistakable, pure hatred. I couldn't look away, even as her skeletal hand dragged across the mirror's surface, her nails scraping with a sound that made my blood turn to ice. It was like nails on a chalkboard, but worse, sharper. Each scrape echoed in the small bathroom, drilling into my ears and setting my nerves on edge. The room seemed to darken further, shadows stretching and twisting, almost as though they were alive. My friend's whispers beyond the door faded, and suddenly, it felt like the only two things that existed were me and Bloody Mary. I tried to scream, but the sound was caught in my throat, as if something was choking the air out of me. She tilted her head, her eyes hollow, as if she could see every thought, every fear I'd ever had, and that twisted smile only grew wider, sharper. A soft whisper echoed around me, though her lips never moved. "Come closer." The voice was soft, like velvet, inviting, yet filled with malice. I stumbled back, my shoulder hitting the wall. The pain jolted me, but even that wasn't enough to shake the paralyzing fear. I reached for the door handle, desperate to escape, but the shadows seemed to grip my hand, holding it in place. And then, the mirror shattered, not with the typical crash of glass breaking, but a sound more like a whispering scream. Each shard suspended mid-air, reflecting distorted fragments of her face, and all of them staring at me. As each piece fell, I expected them to hit the floor, but instead, they hovered, floating around me like sharp, deadly stars. I couldn't take my eyes off one particular shard, in which Bloody Mary's face loomed larger. closer, until it felt like she was standing right behind me. My breath quickened, chest tight. Each breath a struggle against the thick, suffocating air. And then, everything went dark. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer in the bathroom, or, not entirely. I stood in a room that was both familiar and wrong. The tiles cracked, mold creeping up the walls. The mirror was back, whole, but my reflection was gone. Instead, Bloody Mary was there, alone in the mirror, watching me. Her eyes held a terrible knowledge, and a twisted glee that made my skin crawl. She raised her hand, pointing directly at me, and then she spoke. "I've been waiting." I wanted to run, to scream, but I was rooted to the spot. Every instinct told me I was in danger, more danger than I'd ever felt in my life. And then her face changed, becoming my own, except pale, lifeless. The eyes vacant and black as coal. It was my face, but not my soul. "Join me." My own voice echoed back to me, hollow, devoid of life. The shadows in the room thickened, closing in. I could feel their weight pressing against my chest, suffocating me. Each breath became a desperate gasp. My vision blurred, and I felt as though I were slipping away. Somehow, I broke free. I don't know how. But the next thing I knew, I was running, stumbling through endless dark hallways that stretched and twisted like a labyrinth. The sound of her laughter echoed in the darkness, hollow, mocking. Every turn I took led me deeper. No doors, no windows, just an endless maze of shadow and silence. My footsteps seemed to be swallowed up by the dark, leaving me in a chilling quiet that grew heavier with each step. And then, she appeared again, at the end of the hallway. Only this time, she was no longer in the mirror. She was in front of me, real, tangible. Her figure flickered like an image on an old, broken TV. But the malice in her eyes was clear, deadly. "Why are you running? You called me. You summoned me." The words struck me like a physical blow. She was right. I had called her, brought her here. And now, there was no way to send her back. Her face twisted into a look of dark satisfaction as she took a step forward, her form becoming more solid, more real with each step. The hallway stretched longer, and even though I was sure I'd been running, I now felt cornered, like prey in a trap. "You called me here," she whispered, her voice like the rustling of dead leaves. "Now, you can't leave." The walls seemed to pulse with each word, the shadows curling and writhing as though they were alive, breathing, ready to close in on me. I was filled with an intense dread, knowing that no matter which way I turned, I would find no escape. Every ounce of my being screamed to run, to fight, to do something, but I was frozen in place, held captive by her gaze. I didn't mean to. I managed to choke out, barely a whisper, my throat dry, every word scraping like gravel. A twisted smile spread across her face, one that filled me with a deep, unsettling fear. "Intentions don't matter now. You've opened the door, and I'm here to stay." She took another step forward, and the air grew thick, oppressive. Each breath was harder than the last, as if something unseen was pressing down on my chest, suffocating me. I tried to back away, but it was like wading through molasses, slow, sticky, and impossible to escape. "Look," she hissed, gesturing to the mirror on the wall that had appeared out of nowhere. I turned, and my heart stopped. Reflected back at me was a twisted, decayed version of myself. My skin was pale, almost translucent, veins dark beneath the surface. My eyes were hollow, lifeless, filled with the same emptiness I'd seen in her gaze. My reflection moved without me, reaching out a decaying hand toward the glass, fingers splayed as if trying to claw its way through. "No," I whispered, shaking my head, my voice barely audible. "No, this isn't real." "But it is," she replied, her voice soft and mocking. "And it will be, forever." The reflection smirked, mirroring the same twisted grin on her face. I felt my stomach drop as a chill ran down my spine. This wasn't just a nightmare. It was something far worse, something I couldn't wake up from. My heart raced as I stepped back from the mirror, but my reflection, remained glued to the glass, its movements growing more frantic, as if trying to break free. I couldn't tear my eyes away, mesmerized by the horror unfolding before me. The girl, no longer just a shadow, but a manifestation of my deepest fears, advanced toward me, each step heavy with intent. "Do you see?" she taunted, her voice echoing eerily around the dim corridor. "You're becoming one with the darkness. Your soul is mine now." Panic surged through me. I had to escape. I turned to run, but the hallway twisted, elongating further. The darkness wrapped around me like a shroud, the shadows reaching out with clawed fingers. I could feel them grazing my skin, cold and clammy, pulling me back. "No," I shouted, desperation clawing at my throat. I summoned every ounce of strength and lunged toward the nearest door. My fingers grasped the cold handle, twisting and yanking it open. The door led to a room filled with swirling mist, the air thick with an unnatural chill. Inside, I saw countless mirrors lining the walls, each one reflecting different versions of the girl, their eyes glowing with malevolence, beckoning me to join them. I felt an overwhelming urge to scream, but no sound came out, just the hollow echo of my breath mingling with the thick air. "Join us," they whispered in unison, voices dripping with venom. "Embrace the darkness." The room began to spin, the mirrors warping and stretching. I could see the faces of those I loved, distorted and twisted, their features melting into grotesque caricatures of their former selves. I stumbled back, realizing the girl was not just a figment of my imagination. She was a dark force that fed on my fears, my regrets, and my deepest vulnerabilities. In that moment, clarity struck me like lightning. I had to confront her, to take back my power. "No," I shouted, the word erupting from my lips like a wave crashing against the shore. "You don't control me." The girl faltered, her form flickering as though a light was trying to break through. I stepped forward, clenching my fists and narrowing my focus on her. "I refuse to be your prisoner. You are nothing." The mirrors shattered around me, fragments flying like shards of glass, each piece reflecting a different truth about myself, the mistakes, the fears, the pain, but also the strength I had to overcome them. I could feel the darkness swirling, losing its grip. With every ounce of defiance I summoned, I pushed against her, forcing her back. "No," she screamed, her voice a chilling shriek that echoed in the room. "You can't do this. I own you." With a final surge of energy, I shattered the last barrier between us. The girl screamed, her face contorting in rage and disbelief as I watched her dissolve into a cloud of shadows, fading into the corners of the room, swallowed by the light I had ignited within myself. The mist cleared, and I found myself standing alone in the now empty room. The mirrors gone, leaving only a sense of calm in their wake. The oppressive weight lifted, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the clean, fresh air. I had faced my nightmare and emerged victorious. I had chosen to confront my fears, rather than let them consume me. But I knew the darkness still lingered at the edges of my consciousness, waiting for a moment of weakness to strike again. As I stepped out of the room, I vowed to remain vigilant, to face whatever fears awaited me in the dark corners of my mind. After all, the battle against the shadows was not just a one-time fight. It was a lifelong journey, a journey I was finally ready to embrace. As I stood frozen in the living room, the warmth of home turned to ice, and the shadows crept closer. The laughter of my childhood faded, replaced by the sinister whispers of Bloody Mary, swirling around me like a tempest. I turned away from the mirror, desperate to escape the suffocating dread that surrounded me. "Leave me alone," I screamed, but the words felt weak, swallowed by the darkness. "Leave." "Oh, darling, you're mistaken," she crooned, her voice dripping with sweet malice. "You invited me in, remember? You called me here, and now I'm part of you. Forever." I stumbled backward, my heart racing, my mind racing even faster. Memories flickered in my mind like the dying light of a candle. The laughter of my friends, the warmth of the sun on my face, moments filled with joy. All of it felt so far away now. The shadows tightened their grip, dragging me closer to the mirror, where her twisted smile waited with unbearable hunger. "No," I cried out, but the shadows enveloped me, binding my limbs with an unyielding grip. I struggled against them, but they pulled me toward the mirror, the glass shimmering with an otherworldly glow. I could feel her presence pressing against me, merging with the darkness that was closing in on my soul. With each step closer to the mirror, my reflection warped and shifted. The girl behind me smiled with an unsettling familiarity, her hollow eyes filled with a darkness that was both inviting and terrifying. I realized, with horror, that she was not just a specter of fear. She was a part of me, a dark echo of my own soul, awakened by my call. "You wanted to see me, didn't you?" she asked, her voice echoing with the memories of every doubt, every fear I'd ever buried deep within myself. "You wanted to know if I was real. Now you'll know the truth." I could feel the warmth of my emotions fading, replaced by an overwhelming numbness. The shadows whispered secrets, feeding off my terror, urging me to embrace the darkness. It was as if they were revealing a truth I had long avoided, that I had always been drawn to the void, a longing to succumb to despair. With a surge of defiance, I pulled myself away from the mirror, determined to fight back. "I won't let you take me," I yelled, summoning every ounce of willpower left inside me. The shadows recoiled, if only for a moment, as I reached for the door, ready to escape this nightmare. But the moment my fingers brushed the handle, the laughter returned, cackling and cruel, echoing through the room. "You think you can escape? You belong to me now." The mirror pulsed, the reflection rippling like water, and in an instant, I felt a sharp pain shoot through my chest. I looked down to see the glass shards materializing in my skin, like thorns piercing my flesh. Panic surged through me as I clawed at my chest, trying to free myself from the sharp grip of the glass. "You called for me," she whispered again, her face now inches from mine, her breath icy against my skin. "You wished for me, and now I will take what is rightfully mine." I fell to my knees, agony tearing through me, as the shadows closed in tighter. The warmth of my childhood memories faded to black, replaced by the cold touch of despair. Each breath became a struggle, the weight of the darkness pressing down on my chest. "Please," I begged, tears streaming down my face as I clawed at the floor. "I didn't mean it. I'm sorry. Just let me go." But the shadows only tightened their hold, pulling me closer to the mirror. The shards of glass were embedded deeper now, and I could feel the life force draining from my body, the warmth dissipating into the cold air. Bloody Mary leaned closer, her twisted smile growing wider as my reflection morphed into that of the girl I had seen earlier. Dead-eyed, hollow, devoid of hope. In that moment, I understood. There was no escape. I had opened the door, and now I was trapped, destined to become just another part of her dark legacy. I was being pulled into the mirror, into a world where light had no power, where laughter had no place, a realm of eternal darkness. No. I screamed one last time as the darkness consumed me, and then everything went black. The following day, my friends gathered in the living room, laughter filling the space where memories of joy once thrived. They joked about the dare that had sent me into the bathroom alone, the game of courage that had gone too far. But when they turned to call my name, silence fell. The air grew heavy, a thick veil of confusion settling over them as they searched for me. They found the bathroom door ajar, the mirror gleaming ominously. No one understood the darkness that lay within its depths, the horror that awaited. Only the reflection remained, a cold reminder of what had been lost, a promise unkept, a name whispered into the void. As they gazed into the mirror, they would find only shadows and echoes, the memories of a girl who had once laughed and played, now lost forever to the darkness. And the mirror would continue to gleam, waiting patiently for the next curious soul to dare utter the name that had sealed my fate. Bloody Mary.